Don't kill me!
No, my love, I won't kill you. You are my husband.
My name is Daniel, and I want to tell you something that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. I was married to the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. Her name was Clara, and for a long time, a long, peaceful, wonderful time, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. But I was wrong. I just didn't know it yet. Clara came into my life like a calm river. I met her at the weekly market, 3 villages away from mine. She was standing near a table of fresh herbs, holding a bundle of green leaves up to her nose, her eyes closed, breathing in the smell like it was the most beautiful thing in the world. I had never seen anyone look so peaceful. I walked over, I said something foolish, I don't even remember what. She opened her eyes, looked at me and smiled. That was it, I was finished. We talked for a long time that day. She was quiet but warm, like a fire that doesn't crackle too loud but still heats the whole room. She told me she was from a town far to the east, near the river. She had no family left, they had all passed, she said, her eyes dropping for just a moment before the smile came back. I didn't ask more questions, I should have. We were married 4 months later. The village loved Clara, immediately and completely. She cooked food that made the neighbors find reasons to visit. She greeted the elders with both hands. She helped young mothers carry water. She laughed easily and spoke gently and never said a bad word about anyone. My own mother cried when she met her. God was kind to you, Daniel, she said, holding Clara's hands. Very, very kind. And I believed it. With my whole chest I believed it. Our life together was simple and good. I farmed. Clara kept the home. In the evenings we sat outside on small wooden stools and watched the sun go down behind the trees. She would lean her head on my shoulder and hum a soft song I never recognized but always found beautiful. Those were the best evenings of my life. But even in those quiet evenings, looking back now, there were signs. Small ones, easy to miss, easy to explain away. The first thing I noticed was the sunlight. Clara did not like it. Not in a normal way, not like someone who simply preferred shade. It was deeper than that. If morning light fell suddenly across her face, she would turn away sharply, almost like she had been slapped. She wore long sleeves every single day, even during the hottest afternoons when other women walked around in light cotton. She kept the curtains drawn until the sun had dropped lower in the sky. The light hurts my eyes, she would say with a calm smile whenever I asked. I let it go. The second thing was food. Clara cooked wonderful meals, but she ate very little herself. And there were certain things she would never touch. Eggs, milk, anything made from an animal that had been raised in a pen. If I put such things on her plate, she would look at them with something that wasn't quite disgust but was close to it. Something more like instinct. Like a warning rising from deep inside her. My stomach doesn't agree with those, she always said. I let that go too. The third thing was her eyes. Clara had beautiful eyes. Dark, deep, calm. But sometimes in certain light at certain moments they would change, just briefly. The dark center would grow thin, narrow like a line, like a crack in the earth, and she would be staring at me with an expression I could not name. Not angry, not loving. Just watching. Like she was studying me, like she was measuring something. Then she would blink and her warm smile would return, and I would feel foolish for noticing. I was a simple farmer. I told myself I had too much imagination. The nights were the thing that should have warned me most. Clara never came to bed when I did, not once. I would kiss her good night. She would smile and say she was coming soon. I would fall asleep. And somewhere deep in the night she would appear beside me, already lying still, already quiet, her skin always cool to the touch no matter how warm the night was. I asked her once gently, "Where do you go at night, Clara?" She turned to look at me, that thin smile again. I don't sleep well, Daniel. I walk a little, drink water, breathe the night air, it helps me rest. She touched my face with her cool fingers. Go back to sleep, I am here. And I did, because her voice was soft and her hands were gentle and I loved her. But one night, a very ordinary night, about 8 months into our marriage, I woke up and reached for her side of the bed. Empty. I lay still listening. The house was quiet, too quiet. Even the crickets outside had stopped. And then I heard it. A sound just outside the bedroom door. Low, slow, soft. Like something long dragging gently across the floor. My heart knocked hard against my ribs. I held my breath. It moved along the corridor, slowly, without hurry. Then silence. I sat up in the dark, staring at the bedroom door, my mouth completely dry. I told myself it was a rat, a large rat maybe, or a piece of cloth she had dropped while walking. I told myself many things. But I did not get up to check. I simply sat there in the dark, listening, waiting, my heart beating too fast for a man who was supposed to be fine. And when Clara came back to bed 20 minutes later, she smelled like the night air and something else, something older, something I had no name for. She said nothing. I said nothing. But sleep did not return easily that night. And for the first time since our wedding, I lay beside my wife and felt something I had never felt before. Fear. I told myself it was nothing. That is what a man does when he loves someone. He finds reasons to stay comfortable. He builds small walls of explanation around the things that frighten him, and he lives safely behind those walls. For weeks after that night, I did exactly that. But the clues kept coming. It started with the floor. Our house had smooth concrete floors, easy to keep clean, easy to notice marks on. One morning, about a week after the strange dragging sound, I woke up early to fetch water before Clara was awake. I walked through the corridor in the grey morning light and stopped. There was a trail on the floor. Long, continuous, like something wide and heavy had moved slowly from the bedroom door down the corridor, around the corner toward the back of the house, and then outside. Not footprints, not the marks of feet at all. One long, smooth, winding trail, like a thick rope had been dragged in slow curves across the floor. I stood there for a long time, staring at it. Then I heard Clara moving in the bedroom behind me, and something in my chest told me to act normal. I don't know why. I simply know that I turned away from the trail, picked up my water bucket, and walked outside like I had seen nothing. But my hands were not steady. I went back later that afternoon, after Clara had swept the floor. The trail was gone. Of course it was. I stood in the corridor and stared at the clean floor and tried to remember exactly what I had seen. Had it been water? Had she spilled something walking at night? Could it have been the way the morning light was playing tricks on my tired eyes? I built my walls again and went back to my farm. But that evening I noticed the chair. We had a small wooden chair near the back door, an old chair that had belonged to my father. It had always sat in the same corner in the same position for as long as I could remember. That evening it was moved, not far, maybe 2 feet to the left, but enough that I noticed. I asked Clara about it casually, like it meant nothing. "Did you move the chair near the back door?" She looked up from the pot she was stirring. Her expression was perfectly calm. "Yes, I was cleaning behind it." Simple, easy, reasonable. I nodded and sat down for dinner. But I hadn't seen her clean near the back door, and the rest of that corner was still dusty. I began to pay closer attention. Not in an obvious way. I didn't want her to know I was watching. Something, I still don't know what, told me it was important that she not know. So I watched quietly, carefully, the way you watch a fire when you're not sure if it's going to behave. I noticed the cold drafts. Our house was warm. It sat in a part of the village where the wind didn't blow much. But lately, certain rooms would be suddenly cold for no reason. I would walk into the parlor and feel a chill that didn't belong there. Or I would reach for Clara from across the bed and feel a wall of cold air between us before I reached her. I noticed she rearranged things at night. Small objects, a cup moved from one side of the shelf to the other, my boots facing a different direction, a window that I had left slightly open now firmly shut. None of it dramatic, all of it easy to explain. But together, it added up to something I couldn't name. Then I found the skin. I had gone under the bed to retrieve a sandal that had slipped out of reach. I lay flat on my stomach and swept my arm underneath. My fingers touched the sandal and also something else. I pulled it out. It was dry, papery, almost transparent, long and curved at the edges. I held it up in the light from the window and turned it slowly. It looked like the shed skin of a reptile, like a snake had passed through and left a piece of itself behind. But it was large, too large for any ordinary snake I had ever seen. I sat on the floor of my bedroom, holding this thing, and my mind refused to work properly for almost a full minute. Then I heard Clara's footsteps coming down the corridor. I shoved it quickly into my shirt pocket and stood up just as she appeared in the doorway. She looked at me, that steady, calm gaze. "What are you doing?" "Looking for my sandal," I said. My voice came out surprisingly normal. She looked at me for just a moment longer than felt comfortable. Then she nodded and walked away. I stood there with the dry skin pressing against my chest and told myself there were many explanations. Perhaps an animal had come into the house through a gap in the wall. Perhaps it had been there for a long time, and I had simply never looked under the bed before. I told myself these things. I didn't believe them. That night I buried the skin at the edge of the farm where the soil was soft. I don't know why I buried it instead of throwing it away. Some deep, quiet instinct told me to put it in the ground, to cover it, to make it disappear. Then I began watching her at night. Not directly. I would lie with my back to her side of the bed and keep my eyes almost closed, just enough to seem asleep but still sense what was happening behind me. I controlled my breathing, made it slow and even, the way sleeping men breathe. And I waited. She always thought I was asleep. She would lie still for a long time after I stopped moving, sometimes an hour, patient and quiet like only Clara could be. Then she would rise. No sound, not even the rustle of the blanket. She simply left the bed the way water leaves a surface, smoothly, completely, without disturbance. I would hear her move to the door. The door would open and close, almost without sound. And then she was gone. One night, lying in that empty bed, listening to the silence of the house, I made a decision. Next time, I told myself. Next time she gets up, I am going to follow her. I closed my eyes. And almost as if she had heard my thoughts from wherever she was in that dark house, I heard it. Faint, distant, from somewhere beyond the back door. A sound that made my skin tighten from my neck all the way down to my feet. Not the dragging sound this time. This was different. A soft, long, continuous sound. Low and slow, like air escaping from something ancient. I lay completely still, every part of me frozen. It came once more. Then nothing. I did not move until morning. I could not keep lying to myself. That is the thing about fear, you can push it down for a while. You can cover it with love and comfort and reasonable explanations. But it grows underneath all of that quietly, steadily, like roots breaking through concrete. And eventually it pushes through. I had heard that sound. I knew what I had heard. And no matter how many times I told myself it was the wind, or a night bird, or my own tired mind playing cruel games, I knew. I decided to follow her. I planned it carefully. For 3 nights I did nothing different. I went to bed at my normal time, lay still, breathed slowly, and pretended to sleep while she sat up beside me in the dark. I needed her to feel safe. I needed her to believe completely that I suspected nothing. Clara was smart, perhaps smarter than anyone I had ever known. She noticed small things, a change in my breathing, a slight tension in my shoulders, the way I held my jaw when something was bothering me. So I relaxed everything. I let my body go loose. I breathed from my belly slowly and deep, the way a man breathes when his mind is completely at rest. And I watched her from beneath my almost closed eyelids. She would sit in the bed for a long time after I stopped moving, just sitting, perfectly still, her hands in her lap, her head slightly tilted like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. Sometimes she would turn and look at me. Not quickly, slowly, and she would study my face with an expression that I cannot fully describe even now. It was not the face she wore during the day. The warm smile was gone. The soft eyes were gone. What replaced them was something old and careful and completely unreadable. Like a mask had come off. Like this quiet, watching, measuring thing was the real Clara. And the woman I had married was the performance. On the 4th night she got up. I gave her time. I counted to 100 in my head, slow, steady counts before I moved. Then I slipped out of bed as carefully as I could, my feet finding the floor without a sound. I did not take a lamp. I did not take a torch. Light would give me away instantly. I moved through the dark house using memory alone. 3 steps to the bedroom door, Turn the handle slowly, it had a small creak if you turned it too fast. 4 steps down the corridor, past the parlour on the left, past the shelf with the clay pots on the right. The back door was open. Not wide, just a few inches. Enough for the night air to come in cool and thick with the smell of wet earth and trees. I pushed it open slowly and stepped outside. The night was bright with moonlight. A full moon hung low and heavy in the sky, turning everything silver and shadow. The yard stretched out before me, the washing line, the firewood stack, the old mango tree at the far end, all of it painted in pale light and deep darkness. I pressed my back against the wall of the house and stayed still. I looked left, I looked right. Nothing. Then I looked toward the tree line. Our house sat at the edge of the village, where the farmland ended and the forest began. I had always loved that about our home, the way the trees stood tall and dark at the boundary of our yard, like a fence made of living things. I had never been afraid of those trees before. But standing there in the moonlight, looking toward them, I felt something cold move through me that had nothing to do with the night air. The trees were still. Too still. No wind, no rustling. Even the crickets had gone quiet, the way they always seemed to go quiet when Clara was nearby. I moved forward slowly, keeping low, staying close to the shadow of the house. I reached the mango tree and stopped behind its wide trunk. I looked toward the forest. And I saw her. Clara was standing at the very edge of the tree line, maybe 30 feet ahead of me. Her back was to me. She was completely still, standing in a gap between 2 large trees where the moonlight fell in a long silver column. Her white nightgown caught the light and seemed almost to glow. I watched her, barely breathing. For a long moment, nothing happened. She just stood there, her arms at her sides, her head slightly bowed, like she was waiting, or listening, or communicating with something in a language that had no sound. Then she moved. But not the way a person moves. She swayed, slowly, from side to side. A gentle, rhythmic motion like tall grass in a breeze, except there was no breeze. The motion started at her shoulders and seemed to travel downward through her whole body, smooth and continuous and deeply, deeply wrong. My throat closed. I pressed myself harder against the mango tree. Her head rose slowly, tilting back until her face was pointing up at the moon. And I saw her profile in the silver light, her jaw, her neck, her shoulders. And her neck was longer than it should have been. I blinked hard. I looked again. It was there, clear in the moonlight. Her neck had extended, stretched, in a way that was not possible for a human being. Slowly, smoothly, like something beneath the skin was reorganizing itself. A sound escaped me before I could stop it, just a small sound, a sharp intake of breath. Clara went completely still. Every part of her froze instantly, like an animal that had heard a twig snap. I stopped breathing entirely. I pressed my whole body against the mango tree, squeezing my eyes shut for 1 second, then opening them again. She was still facing away from me. But her head had turned. Not her body, just her head, rotating slowly on that too long neck, turning toward where I was hiding. Turning farther than any human head can turn. I pressed myself flat and did not move, did not breathe, did not think. For what felt like a very long time, nothing happened. Then slowly her head turned back toward the forest. And from the darkness between the trees, from somewhere deep and black and far away, came a sound that crawled into my ears and stayed there. Long, low, patient. Not like an animal calling. Like an answer. Like something in that forest knew she was there. Like something in that forest was waiting for her. I turned and walked back to the house as quietly and as quickly as I could. I got into bed, I pulled the blanket up, I lay completely still. And I stared at the ceiling with wide open eyes, and a heart that would not slow down. Something was moving in that darkness near the forest. Something I could not see clearly. Something I was not sure I wanted to see at all. But I knew with a cold and certain knowing that settled deep in my bones that tomorrow night, I would not turn back. Tomorrow night I would stay long enough to see the truth. Whatever it was.